What's happening, folks? We're back for day 5 of Classical Days, and we begin with another symphonic tone poem, this time by Richard Strauss, a German composer of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, and we're going to listen to his Till Eulenspiegel's Merry Pranks, based on a German folk character that I think goes back at least to the early 16th century, if not earlier, who was a bit of a troublemaker, which I think relates to not only the title Merry Pranks, but the jollity mixed with mischief of a lot of the music over the course of this 13-14 minute tone poem. And yes, this is another piece featured prominently in Nodame Cantabile. I'm going to keep mentioning, if anyone likes classical music, I highly recommend you check out the show, and I will put a link for my full watch-along of it on Patreon here in the video description. But yes, it's a very dynamic piece, it's light, it has some tension and drama along the way, so let's give it a listen. This is Richard Strauss and his Till Eulenspiegel's Merry Pranks, a symphonic tone poem, performed here by the Cleveland Orchestra and conducted by George Szell. I'm not sure how that's how you pronounce it. It's S-Z-E-L-L. It's crazy, right? It definitely is a bit wilder than a lot of the music I've been listening to this special period of classical days. I think in part because it's more modern now. It's still late 19th century, which, it's not even 20th century, and I've listened to at least a couple pieces from the 20th century. in the last few days, like yesterday, I listened to Prokofiev's Montagues and Capulets from his Romeo and Juliet ballet. That was 20th century. Still, it's certainly not Baroque. It's not classical era. It's not even early Romantic. It's like if anything, it's like very late Romantic period. And yeah, it just has a zanier sound. And I suppose if you're looking to hear something like a tranquil and elegant Mozart piece, you might be a bit overwhelmed here because there's some dissonance and some unusual noises. But if you go into it with a sense of what the piece is about, I think it makes perfect sense. It sounds like hijinks and a bit of mischief and jollity, but also the trouble that's being caused by these pranks, which again, I don't know the full story, but yes, remembering what was said in Nodame even, I believe at the end of a lot of his shenanigans, unfortunately, Till is put to death, if I'm recalling correctly. I may be mistaken there, but either way, merry pranks is something, a concept, a narrative type that comes across in the piece. I think it's performed well here. It does make me think when it's used in Nodame, it's used in a conducting competition, and it's one of the moments where one of the main characters, Chiaki Shinichi, is a bit too keen to make his mark and make an impression, and he becomes a bit hyper-corrective of members in the orchestra when he's trying to perform it the way he wants, and it leads to the orchestra sort of tuning him out a little bit, which makes the performance not what he wants it to be. And there's a moment like, oh, is he going to make it to the next round of the competition, which he does. And when he comes to the final of the competition, he performs it again, but this time he has a better understanding of how to work with the orchestra, and it comes off much better, and the orchestra members are happy, and it's performed well, and the audience very much enjoys it. So it also features as a prominent narrative device in one of my favorite shows of all time, which again, I will leave a link to the full watch-along I did for the show on Patreon in the description here. Let me know what you think of this performance, and I will see you for the next piece. Peace.